So I come back again to the, to the politics around reform and the way in which the Congress party responded, to the GST launch. And, the bulk of the GST work happened when they were in power, but they boycotted it because they felt that, let's not go overboard. They called it a political tamasha, some even calling it political propaganda. Do you at all find faults in the manner in which the government decided to,
no, why
to
should
launch?
I?
Exactly.
I mean, the important thing is GST was launched. The Congress party is objecting why it was launched at midnight. Should it have been launched, done at 11 o'clock in the morning? I mean, we can have quibblings of this kind. But it is a big reform, and the government was well within its rights to celebrate that reform and send a message. And let me make the point, a very important point, is that economic reforms will succeed only when the meaning and import of economic reforms are properly conveyed to the people. Messaging is very important. And if the government is doing that messaging, how can one object?
And which is what the government is now attempting to do.
Yeah.
They're actually holding GST classrooms, trying to educate people.
Absolutely.
So that will be important.
Yes.
So, I ask you this because you're the former finance minister. You've seen the evolution of economic reforms in India. Let's talk about this government, because do you feel somewhere that the economic narrative of this government has changed? When it came to power, one thought this is going to be like the Thatcher-Reagan moment for India. Policies like NREGA, which even you have criticized, were questioned. Farm loan waivers by the Congress of 2009 was questioned, criticized. But now we see the government embracing NREGA. We see the government, many BJP state governments announcing farm loan waivers despite the issue of moral hazard. Has the economic narrative changed, sir, in your opinion?
When I was finance minister, a leading magazine of this country came out with a cover. It had my photograph, and it said, "It is politics stupid."
It is?
Politics is stupid.
Okay.
You remember that famous saying of Clinton era, that it is economics stupid.
So they flipped that.
They flipped that and they said it is politics stupid. And the point that I have been trying to make to you from the beginning is, in India, it is always politics which has dominated economic policy. And it will be politics and electoral considerations which will continue to dominate it. And that is why I am full of praise for the courage of Mr. Vajpayee. He knew some of these implications from his long experience of public life, knew some of the electoral implications of the steps that we were taking, but once he was convinced that it had to be done in the economic interests of the country, he never wavered and he went ahead.
So are you implying that the economic narrative has changed because, you need to keep political considerations at the back of your mind,
all
which
the time.
Perhaps Vajpayee ji did not, and because he knew that for national good, he could not steer away from the economic priorities.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why, while I take a large part of the blame, there were other factors, no doubt, for the 2004 defeat of the BJP. I would give full credit to Mr. Vajpayee that he went along with all the reforms that were suggested to him.
So you would say Mr. Vajpayee is the most reform-minded Prime Minister India has had in the last...
Yeah, because if you look at the Narasimha Rao period, where the Big Bang 1991 reforms were initiated, they ran their course in 2 years. After 94, when they lost the state assembly elections, the reforms slowed down. Vajpayee's tenure was the only tenure of a government in Delhi where reforms were done for the sake of reforms. I mean,
there were no immediate compulsions like in 91, as you've said, they were under duress.
So there was no duress for those reforms. What was the duress for? For the insurance sector reforms? No. What was the duress for FRBM? Nothing. So life could have gone on without any of these measures.
You also did divestment. You revived the
divestment. I mean, I was just mentioning to someone that people have forgotten, but the liberalization of the dairy industry in India was a huge step. De-reservation of items reserved for manufacture of small-scale industries was a huge step. So if you look at it, there was a series of steps that we went on taking. They were politically not popular, but they were economically very, very worthwhile.
So what lessons will you give, sir, to the government, as they revive divestment once again of Air India? Maybe advice to your own son, sir. How should one, and what could be the lessons that one can learn from?
I just told you I don't give advice, and I'll certainly not want to give advice.
But what can be the learning? We're not to advise to the government, but as when we, because this is a bold divestment that the government is trying to do.
The Prime Minister leads the government, and it's entirely up to the Prime Minister to take a call. In a given situation, whether he gives preponderance to political considerations or he gives importance to the economy. And if something is important for the economy to move forward, I will say, going by the Vajpayee example, eschew political considerations, eschew electoral considerations, and move firmly on the reform path.
So, we've seen this government come out with two very important, policy decisions. One was, of course, demonetisation, and soon, 8 months later, a GST. What does it tell you about the political courage, so to speak, of this government willing to undertake these kind of reforms? Because many would again say, as far as demonetisation is concerned, there was no immediate trigger per se. It was, of course, a sort of a ticking time bomb, especially with the counterfeit notes and so on and so forth. But again, there was no immediate trigger. It's not that the Indian economy was in duress. What does it reveal?
No, it certainly shows courage. It certainly shows courage, especially on the part of the Prime Minister, that he is bold enough to be able to take such landmark decisions, which normally people will hesitate to take. So that goes without saying. But having said that, I would also like to add that the consequences of the steps that you are taking should also be properly evaluated. I mean, Mr. Vajpayee, for instance, early in his tenure, went for nuclear tests. That was perhaps the boldest decision which has been taken in independent India's history. The nuclear tests, with its ramifications, which were political, which were foreign policy, which were economic. But he decided to take the bull by the horns.
But what have been the consequences then of demonetization? That concerns you.
I don't know yet. Because, I have been saying that until we get the basic figure of how much of the currency came back, it's very difficult to say whether it has succeeded in this.
Do you think that way the RBI should have been more transparent? I mean, or more forthcoming? As you said, you need to communicate. So in that sense, there was a bit of a shortcoming then of Reserve Bank.
They were coming out with weekly figures. For instance, with 20 lakh, 5 lakhs came back, 10 lakhs came back. Then they suddenly put a lid on it. And we don't have a final figure even after 8 months. So the sooner RBI comes out with this figure, the sooner we'll be enabled to pronounce whether demonetization has succeeded in its purpose or not succeeded.
Mr. Yashwant Sinha, many thank you, sir, for your time. Well, that was a special edition of Book It with our former Finance Minister, Mr. Yashwant Sinha. This is the book, The Future of the Indian Economy. It's hit the stands. Go get your copy. From all of us here, many thanks for watching.